And we're back. So I was curious, what are your favorite moments so far as a producer in the game?
Um, as a producer, I sort of love any time we can introduce new content. Um, One particular one that I loved was the Blade Master class introduction that we did probably start of last year. It was sort of a role play to lead up for probably about 6 weeks or so beforehand, and then finally we unveiled the class, and it was just really well received, and that's probably one of my favorite moments as a producer.
And that was a particular class that you had a big part in as a
Uh,
producer?
yes, that was pretty much entirely my design. I coded it all, so it's really good.
And as a player, if you come up with a great idea, like say you come up with this class that, like Blade Masters, that you would like to see implemented, is that possible?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think people sort of realize how much work there is in actually developing and coding a class and then doing all the balance testing and things like that. So it's not something that we've got to spare 3 days, we're going to build a new class sort of thing. It's usually like 6 months of solid work.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, we definitely look at all of the submitted ideas and things like that. I've got a probably 20 or 30 really well developed class and skill ideas that people have emailed through that I've got here that we may look at in the future.
So there's no shortage in future possibilities for the game and things that people will look forward to, is what you're saying.
Yeah, there's plenty to come. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's exciting, and I know that myself being a player, that's something that I look forward to. So, as a producer, are there any tasks that you would say are daunting or somewhat scary in terms of I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring this about the way I want to, or something like that?
Uh, Not necessarily in that regard. There's still daunting factors when you're doing a lot of sort of face-to-face stuff with the players, because players are known to be critical of little things. So even if you may say the wrong word here and there, then it can sort of lead to all sorts of gossip and things. So
Mm-hmm.
I still find some of the interactions with players a bit daunting at times.
Well, I hope that doesn't make you shy away from it because I know that the majority of players appreciate it and
Yeah,
and they really get a lot from the feedback they get from interacting with gods. And I think that if a god were to become too jaded, it could definitely be a detriment to the players. But
yeah,
I could see the need for the balance.
definitely.
I think that's kind of what you're saying. At the same time, players need to respect that the gods are doing more than just interacting. And I think that that's often, one of those challenges is we want the gods to interact all the time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you guys are behind the scenes working a lot of times like volunteers. They're building their areas and so on. So, in terms of active gods in the game, how many have you found have stuck around for the long haul? Have you found that there's quite a few that are still around from when they became gods years ago? And how many of them are still actively involved behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think our record is Lucas, who's been up in the garden for about 10 years now. So
Wow.
he's really pushing it. We've got a fair few gods that have been up for about at least 4 or 5 years now. So we've probably got about, I'd say, 4 or 5 gods have been up for 4 or 5 years. So yeah, there are definitely people who love it. So
Well, I know for off the top of my head, I know Festus. And I don't know if that's the right pronunciation, but Phaeostus or whatever. He
I
the
got this.
Face Festus, yeah, the Smith. He's been around a long time, and I remember I actually kind of challenged him a while back about are you the same guy? Because I was like, do you remember so and so? And he did. So I was all right.
Yeah,
That's pretty good to see. We hope that at least they get the information passed along to them so they can
yeah.
keep
We
up.
try to keep good notes and that sort of thing. So if a new guy does have to take over, then
Yeah, I like when you fool me. That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
If you can trick me, that's a good thing. You know. And then another thing I wanted to talk about is what are some of the new features that we're seeing right now, and what are you thinking they're going to become? Like, I saw City Destruction as this new implementation in the war system, which is really encouraging cities to interact with each other more than they have in the past, which has been kind of just unsanctioned. Now they have these sanctioned raids So tell me a little bit about that and where you see that going in the future.
Yeah, definitely. The city destruction system is something that we wanted to put in to sort of give rating a bit more of a sort of a point, I guess. We had a lot of complaints that there's no real point to it. People will just go there and just try and kill other people, and from the raiders' point of view, there's no lasting impact, and from the defenders' point of view, there's not really much of a point. They just sit there and basically become fodder for these massive groups of people who choose to just go and raid other cities.
Exactly.
So we put this in with the intention to sort of give raids a point so they can destroy rooms in other cities and things like that, while still tempering it so it's still fair on defenders, so they feel that they don't need to be stuck defending for 8 hours a day and things like that. So we've sort of limited the amount of destruction that they can do, so it sort of keeps it fair for everyone else.
Well, tell me about where this system is heading. What can we expect to see in the future? Is this the final product, or is there more to come in this system?
As I like to say, nothing's ever finished in Achaea. We'll see how it's used, and look at sort of the ideas that have been filed about it, and we'll discuss it with the Combat Council, which is a group of players who basically keep up to date on all the combat aspects that we sort of don't get as much contact with as gods. And we'll sort of build on it from there. There's talks of we've got some ideas of maybe doing sort of longer term effects, like actual unrepairable damage to cities if like one room's been destroyed a lot, or things like that, to sort of allow for a bit more permanent change to the game based on player interaction.
Oh, okay, that sounds good. So there's definitely more to come. It's just going to be looked at right now sort of as a testing phase. It's kind of in beta test in a sense.
Yeah, in the same sense, everything is in beta, like all the class skills constantly tweaking and changing and things like that. So I'd say the biggest thing to do is just get in there and test it out, and if there's something you'd like to see different about it, just let us know, and we'll definitely keep it in mind.
Right. Another thing I've seen recently is these crated pets, which are like a new implementation, and you can kind of develop an entourage of these pets.
Yeah.
And this is more different than the typical pets that people buy with credits. Can you explain the difference for people that might be wondering?
Yeah, basically they're just mini pets. We started a little while ago with the birds that were available in the Shop of Wonders, and then we sort of merged that again with the pets in the New Thera pet store, and sort of developed these new mini artifact pets that don't really provide any sort of combat advantage, but they're just novelty sort of things that people seem to love. So we're definitely going to keep doing similar things in the future. I think probably in the next week or so I'm going to release a whole heap of new pets for in the globes, to allow people to expand their entourage of followers.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that should be fun to look forward to, seeing people with all their entourage. You'll have like a bunch of zookeepers running around.
Yeah.
I have another question about ascension into becoming a god. Back when, I guess you could say, Cervellin ascended to become Eris, it was basically a mortal becoming a god. Have you seen that as a possibility again in Achaea in the future, or is that something that players can no longer look forward to? Because that's a pretty exciting prospect of, a player actually transforming into a god.
Yeah. Ideally, I'd like to say that we will do it again, but what we found with those sort of cases was that players didn't look at the Ascended Divine as an actual divine. They just thought it was just sort of the old player with a new name, so they wouldn't treat them as sort of a divine would normally be treated. So that was one of the biggest issues with it. People couldn't sort of comprehend that this was a new person and they're a god. So
wow.
If you owed them 5 credits or something like that, that's all finished with now.
Right.
So that was one of the biggest drawbacks of the system. So we're probably not looking at that in the near future, but it may happen again in the future in special cases. I know, like, pretty much everyone would like the sort of historic sort of thing of being an ascended god.
Right.
So it's definitely a big goal for a lot of players.
Yeah, I think that has a big impact on the game is being able to have a legacy that is remembered and looked upon in a in-game sense, more so than just telling people oral stories, but actually saying, like, you can see here where this actually happened. And I think there's a general kind of curiosity that people want to know, is there a way to become part of Achaea's history,
Yeah. Like in a perfect world, yeah, definitely we'd offer that all the time. But once we sort out some of the problems with it, we may actually look at re-implementing it in the future sometime.
Well, it was probably the first game of the Iron Realms games for it to happen, so maybe that can come back around. I was just curious because I see it being kind of a commonality in some of the other Iron Realms games. They have variations of it, and so I was looking to see if that was something you guys had thought about.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we've had in the back of our minds for a while. So.
Cool. I kind of think about it because I wonder, are the number of dragons in Achaea getting out of hand?
I think we're up to about 240 or so at the last count. So yeah, they are getting pretty high. We're kind of brainstorming on some new ideas for things to do at that point in time, sort of give players something new to look forward to and work towards. So.
Right, giving them some end game content that's a little different from, and I think the rating system is good for that. And I think it would be interesting if there was something specifically designed towards the dragons, now that there's so many that it actually could be a good number of people participating.
Yes.
So. Cool. Well, it's good to know you guys are thinking about those kinds of things.